Welcome to the world of daily life stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy listening. The boarding encounter. The airport hummed with life, a living, breathing entity of rushing travelers, hurried announcements, and the rhythmic tapping of rolling suitcases. Amara Johnson stood amidst it all, her figure exuding quiet elegance. Her caramel skin glowed under the terminal lights, her braided hair tied back in a neat bun. She was dressed in a tailored navy pantsuit that complemented her commanding yet approachable demeanor. Her only accessory was a sleek designer handbag, a piece so subtle that its true value could only be discerned by the discerning eye. Amara was no stranger to the hustle and bustle of airports. As the CEO of a multinational technology conglomerate, her days often began and ended in different time zones. Yet today's journey wasn't for a board meeting or a global summit. She was heading home to Atlanta after months of tireless work, ready to reconnect with the community initiatives she cherished deeply. As she approached the boarding gate, a faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips. She noticed a young boy, probably no older than 8, struggling to tie his shoelaces while his flustered mother juggled passports and boarding passes. Without hesitation, Amara knelt, her polished nails carefully looping the laces into a tidy bow. "Thank you," the mother said, her voice a mixture of gratitude and relief. "It's nothing," Amara replied with a warm smile, her voice calm and measured. The interaction wasn't out of place for her. Beneath her towering success and wealth, Amara remained deeply connected to the values instilled in her during her modest upbringing in South Carolina, a steadfast belief in kindness, humility, and perseverance. As she handed her boarding pass to the agent, her presence commanded attention, not from flamboyance, but from an aura of quiet authority. Her first-class ticket was scanned with efficiency, and she made her way down the jet bridge. Inside the plane, Lisa, a seasoned flight attendant, was double-checking her prep list. With over a decade of experience, Lisa prided herself on her professionalism. She had seen it all: celebrity tantrums, frazzled parents, and even a few mid-air medical emergencies. Today, she was determined to make her shift as smooth as possible. The first-class cabin gleamed under her watchful eye, each seat meticulously arranged. As Amara entered the cabin, Lisa gave her a quick once-over. Something about the woman's understated elegance didn't sit right with her. Lisa couldn't put her finger on it, but a flicker of bias clouded her judgment. She plastered on a polite smile and directed Amara to her seat with minimal effort, her tone neutral, but lacking warmth. Amara took her seat by the window, oblivious to Lisa's fleeting judgment. She pulled out her tablet, reviewing plans for an upcoming STEM initiative designed to bring technology education to underserved communities. Her mind buzzed with ideas, but a growing sense of unease lingered. It wasn't the plane or the destination, it was the energy, the subtle shifts in body language from those around her. Passengers trickled in, and the first-class cabin soon filled with business professionals, a smattering of affluent retirees, and a few families. Lisa moved efficiently, her sharp eyes scanning the cabin. She handed out welcome beverages and ensured everyone was settled, everyone except Amara. Amara noticed, but chose not to react. Her life had been riddled with microaggressions and subtle slights, enough for her to recognize this moment as another instance of a pervasive bias that still clung to society. Instead of addressing it, she focused on her tablet, her fingers gliding across the screen with precision. Minutes passed, and Lisa approached Amara's seat. Instead of offering her a drink, Lisa glanced at her with thinly veiled skepticism. "Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right seat?" she asked, her tone laced with disbelief. Amara looked up, her gaze calm but unyielding. "I believe my ticket says 3A, she replied, her voice steady. Lisa's cheeks flushed slightly, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she turned on her heel, muttering something under her breath about double-checking the manifest. Other passengers glanced over, their expressions ranging from curiosity to discomfort. Amara could feel their eyes on her, but she remained poised, her face betraying no emotion. Lisa returned moments later, her expression neutral but tight. "Apologies, ma'am. We'll bring your drink shortly," she said, her voice clipped. Thank you, Amara replied, her tone polite but firm. As Lisa walked away, Amara exhaled quietly. She was no stranger to moments like this, moments where her identity, her skin, and the preconceived notions of others collided with her reality. But she also knew the power of response, of choosing when and how to address such moments. Amara didn't just sit in her seat. She was a woman who had built empires, shattered glass ceilings, and inspired countless others to rise above adversity. And while Lisa had underestimated her, the next moments would reveal a lesson far more profound than Lisa could have anticipated. A lesson in perception. The cabin settled into a rhythm as the plane taxied to the runway, the low hum of engines vibrating beneath the passengers. Amara, seated in 3A, looked out the window as the ground staff dwindled into small dots on the tarmac. Her face remained composed, but her mind lingered on the encounter with Lisa. It wasn't anger she felt, nor surprise, just a deep sense of disappointment. These moments, though subtle, carried weight. She adjusted her posture and turned her attention to the tablet in her lap. The blueprint for the STEM initiative stared back at her, a project aimed at empowering young girls of color to pursue careers in technology and engineering. Amara's thoughts began to drift, recalling her own struggles as a young woman breaking into a predominantly white, male-dominated field. Her success was not handed to her, it was forged through sleepless nights, endless rejections, and a resolve that would not waver. A soft ding broke her reverie, signaling that the plane had reached cruising altitude. Lisa, now free to move about the cabin, began her service. She approached each passenger with a smile, ensuring their needs were met, but when she reached Amara, her demeanor shifted. Lisa's smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and her voice held a faint trace of impatience. "What can I get you to drink?" Lisa asked, her tone professional but distant. Amara glanced up, her expression calm but unyielding. "A glass of sparkling water, please." Lisa nodded and moved on without another word. As she walked away, Amara caught snippets of a conversation between two passengers seated across the aisle. "Do you think she's a celebrity?" one whispered. "Maybe. Or just someone who likes to look important," the other replied, chuckling softly. Amara's grip on her tablet tightened for a moment before she relaxed. She had heard such comments before, the quiet undermining of her presence in spaces she had every right to occupy. But she had learned long ago that her worth wasn't defined by the judgments of others. Instead, she allowed her actions to speak for her. Lisa returned with the sparkling water, placing it on the tray table without meeting Amara's eyes. The indifference in her gesture was clear, but Amara's response was equally deliberate. "Thank you," she said, her tone warm yet pointed. As Lisa moved to the next passenger, a man in a crisp suit called her over. "Excuse me, miss. Is there any chance of an upgrade to your finest champagne?" he asked with a charming smile. Lisa laughed lightly, her demeanor transforming. "Of course, sir. I'll bring that right out." The contrast wasn't lost on Amara, nor on several other passengers who exchanged uneasy glances. It was subtle, yes, but unmistakable, the kind of preferential treatment that revealed more than it concealed. The flight continued uneventfully until turbulence jolted the cabin. The plane shuddered briefly, and a collective murmur spread among the passengers. Amara, unfazed, placed her tablet aside and glanced around. A young woman seated nearby gripped the armrests, her face pale with fear. "First time flying?" Amara asked gently. The woman nodded, her eyes wide. "I'm terrified of turbulence," she admitted. Amara offered a reassuring smile. "It's perfectly normal. Think of it as driving over a bumpy road, uncomfortable, but harmless." Her calm demeanor seemed to ease the woman's anxiety. As the plane steadied, the woman let out a shaky breath. "Thank you," she said softly. "I've never met someone so composed." Amara's response was humble. "Composure comes with experience," she said, her voice tinged with wisdom. "And sometimes, it's a choice." Lisa observed the exchange from the galley, her brow furrowing. She couldn't quite place what it was about Amara that unsettled her. The woman carried herself with a confidence that was neither boastful nor meek, a presence that demanded respect without asking for it. And yet, Lisa had been quick to dismiss her. Later, as the cabin dimmed for the evening, Lisa began distributing meal trays. When she reached Amara, she hesitated for a moment. "Ma'am, would you prefer the chicken or the vegetarian option?" she asked, her tone slightly softer than before. Amara looked up, her expression neutral. "Chicken, please. And thank you for asking." The sincerity in Amara's response caught Lisa off guard. She nodded and placed the tray on Amara's table, her movements less abrupt than earlier. As Lisa continued her rounds, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had misjudged Amara. The interactions she observed between Amara and other passengers were genuine, marked by kindness and grace. It was a stark contrast to the assumptions Lisa had made. Midway through the flight, an announcement crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest on board tonight," the captain began, his voice warm. "We're honored to have Ms. Amara Johnson, CEO of Johnson Tech Solutions and a leading philanthropist, traveling with us. Her contributions to technology and education have changed countless lives, and we're thrilled to welcome her aboard." A ripple of surprise and admiration swept through the cabin. Passengers turned to look at Amara, who acknowledged the attention with a modest smile. Lisa froze in place, her cheeks burning. She realized, with a sinking feeling, the gravity of her earlier behavior. Amara, however, remained gracious. She caught Lisa's eye and offered a small nod, as if to say, "It's never too late to learn." In that moment, Lisa understood that this flight wasn't just about reaching a destination. It was a journey that had challenged her perceptions, forcing her to confront the biases she hadn't even realized she held. And while Amara's grace and resilience had been tested, it was Lisa who walked away with the most profound lesson of all. Confronting the mirror. As the announcement faded, a wave of whispers coursed through the first-class cabin. Amara remained seated, her expression composed despite the captain's unexpected acknowledgement. She wasn't one to bask in the limelight, her work, she often said, spoke louder than her name ever could. But tonight, the spotlight had found her nonetheless. Lisa's face was flushed, her movements stiff as she made her way back to the galley. Her mind raced, replaying every interaction she'd had with Amara since the boarding process. The polite dismissals, the clipped tone, the blatant assumption about her seat. A gnawing discomfort settled in Lisa's chest, a mixture of guilt and shame she couldn't ignore. In the quiet confines of the galley, Lisa poured herself a glass of water, her hands trembling slightly. She had prided herself on being a professional, treating every passenger with courtesy and respect. Yet tonight, she had failed. And not just anyone, but someone whose contributions were reshaping lives on a global scale. She glanced out at the cabin. Amara was speaking softly to a young woman across the aisle, her gestures calm and reassuring. The woman nodded, her tension visibly easing as they conversed. The sight stirred something in Lisa, a realization that Amara's grace wasn't performative. It was genuine, a reflection of her character. Dinner service concluded, and the cabin lights dimmed. Most passengers reclined their seats and settled in for the overnight flight. Amara, however, remained alert, her tablet screen casting a soft glow on her face. She was reviewing the final details of a keynote speech she was scheduled to deliver at a tech conference. The topic? Breaking barriers, the power of inclusive innovation. Lisa hesitated before stepping out of the galley. Clutching a tray with a fresh cup of tea, she approached Amara's seat. "Ms. Johnson," Lisa began, her voice quieter than usual. I wanted to offer you this. It's chamomile. I thought you might like something soothing for the rest of the flight." Amara looked up, her eyes meeting Lisa's. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Amara's lips curved into a small, understanding smile. "Thank you," she said, her voice warm. She accepted the tea and gestured to the seat across from her. "Care to join me for a moment?" Lisa hesitated, then nodded. She set the tray down and took the seat, her posture tense, but her gaze steady. I owe you an apology, Lisa said, her voice laced with sincerity. When you boarded, I made assumptions about you that were completely unfounded. And when I realized who you are, well, it's not who you are that's important. It's how I treated you, and that was wrong. Amara's expression softened, though her gaze remained steady. Lisa, acknowledging bias isn't easy. It's a step many never take. The real question is, what will you do with this awareness moving forward? Lisa's breath hitched. She hadn't expected such grace in response to her confession. I'll do better, she said finally. Not just with passengers, but with everyone I meet. I can't change the way I acted tonight, but I can change what I learned from it. Amara nodded, her expression approving. That's all anyone can ask. Growth is a journey, not a destination. As Lisa returned to her duties, she felt a weight lift from her chest. The rest of the flight seemed to pass in a blur, though her interactions with passengers were now imbued with a renewed sense of purpose. She noticed the little things, the anxious tap of a passenger's fingers, the subtle slump of another's shoulders, and responded with genuine care. Meanwhile, Amara's thoughts returned to her speech. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on her. Here she was, preparing to speak about inclusion and breaking barriers, while living a microcosm of those very challenges at 30,000 feet. But instead of frustration, she felt a quiet resolve. This was why her work mattered, to dismantle the biases that confined potential and to foster environments where everyone could thrive. The plane began its descent, and the cabin stirred with the rustle of passengers preparing for landing. As the wheels touched down, a round of polite applause rippled through the cabin. Lisa made her final rounds, ensuring everyone was ready to disembark. When she reached Amara's seat, she paused. Ms. Johnson, thank you for your patience tonight, Lisa said earnestly. I hope you'll allow me to personally escort you off the plane. Amara smiled. That won't be necessary, Lisa. But thank you. You've already done more than enough by taking responsibility. Lisa's eyes glistened with gratitude as she nodded. Safe travels, ma'am. As Amara stepped off the plane and into the bustling terminal, she was greeted by her assistant, who handed her a folder containing the final itinerary for the week. Yet her mind lingered on the flight and the moments of quiet humanity it had revealed. In her work, she had often spoken of systemic change, of sweeping reforms and large-scale initiatives. But tonight had reminded her of the power of individual transformation, of how even a single shift in perspective could ripple outward, creating waves of understanding and compassion. And as she walked through the terminal, her stride confident and her purpose clear, she carried with her not just the weight of her success, but the boundless potential of every life she touched along the way. Echoes of change. The terminal hummed with activity, a swirling mix of passengers hurrying to their destinations and airport staff moving with practiced efficiency. Amara stepped into the airport lounge, her demeanor calm and poised, though her thoughts were still tethered to the events of the flight. She had seen it before, bias manifesting in subtle gestures and offhand comments, but rarely had she encountered someone like Lisa, who had not only recognized her mistake but actively sought to make amends. It was a small moment, but one that hinted at the larger ripple effects of change. Amara's assistant, Elijah, handed her a cup of green tea and the final schedule for the week. Your keynote is tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp, and there's a panel discussion at 2 in the afternoon, he said, his tone efficient yet warm. And we've confirmed your meeting with the foundation heads for later in the evening. Perfect, Amara replied, scanning the itinerary. How's the outreach campaign looking? Elijah's eyes lit up. Better than expected. The initiative is trending, and we've already received inquiries from 3 additional school districts interested in partnering with us. A small smile tugged at Amara's lips. Good. Let's make sure those inquiries get immediate follow-ups. No delays. Elijah nodded and excused himself, leaving Amara a moment to herself. She sipped her tea, her gaze drifting to the window overlooking the tarmac. The faint hum of airplanes taking off and landing served as a backdrop to her thoughts. The memory of Lisa's apology lingered, not because of its rarity, but because of its sincerity. It wasn't often that people confronted their biases so openly, let alone took responsibility for them. The next morning, Amara stood backstage at the convention center, the bustling energy of the event palpable even from behind the curtains. The annual Global Innovation Summit was one of the largest gatherings of industry leaders, and her keynote address was one of the most anticipated sessions of the conference. Dressed in a tailored emerald green suit, Amara exuded a confidence that came not from arrogance but from years of experience. She took a deep breath, centering herself before stepping onto the stage. The audience, a sea of professionals, educators, and aspiring entrepreneurs, erupted into applause as she approached the podium. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady and resonant. "Innovation is not just about technology or groundbreaking ideas. It's about inclusion. It's about ensuring that the opportunities we create are accessible to everyone, regardless of their background, race, or gender." She paused, letting her words settle. For too long, systemic barriers have prevented brilliant minds from reaching their full potential. These barriers aren't always obvious. Sometimes, they manifest as unconscious biases, subtle but powerful enough to shape outcomes. Amara's mind flicked briefly to Lisa, a vivid example of how those biases could be dismantled with awareness and accountability. "But here's the good news," she continued. "We have the power to change that. By fostering environments that celebrate diversity and challenge assumptions, we don't just create opportunities, we create a better world." The audience was captivated, hanging on her every word. Amara went on to share stories of individuals who had broken through barriers, their journeys serving as both inspiration and a call to action. She ended with a challenge, for every person in the room to examine their own biases and commit to being agents of change. The applause that followed was thunderous, a standing ovation that filled the cavernous hall. Amara stepped off the stage, her heart full. She had delivered countless speeches in her career, but this one felt especially meaningful. It was more than just words, it was a reminder of the responsibility she carried and the impact she could make. Later that afternoon, during a panel discussion, Amara shared the stage with other industry leaders. The moderator, a sharp-witted journalist, turned to her with a thoughtful question. "Ms. Johnson, you've often spoken about the importance of addressing bias in the workplace. Can you share a personal experience that shaped your perspective on this?" Amara smiled, her mind instantly recalling the events of the previous evening. "Just last night, on my flight here, I encountered a situation that reminded me why this work is so crucial," she began. "A flight attendant, likely influenced by unconscious bias, treated me differently based on assumptions about who I was. But what stood out wasn't the bias itself, it was her response when she realized her mistake. She acknowledged it, took responsibility, and made a genuine effort to correct it." The audience listened intently, some nodding in agreement. "It was a small moment," Amara continued, "but it's a microcosm of the larger changes we need to see. Accountability and a willingness to grow are essential. It's not about being perfect, it's about being better." Her words resonated deeply, sparking a ripple of discussion among the panelists and audience alike. The conversation that followed was rich and thought-provoking, delving into strategies for fostering inclusivity and dismantling systemic barriers. As the day wound to a close, Amara found herself back at her hotel, reflecting on the whirlwind of events. The keynote, the panel, the endless stream of conversations, it was all part of her mission, one she carried with unwavering determination. A notification pinged on her phone. It was a message from Lisa, sent through the airline's internal system. *Ms. Johnson. I wanted to thank you again for your kindness and understanding. Our conversation has stayed with me, and I've shared what I learned with my colleagues. I hope to carry this lesson forward in everything I do. Safe travels. Lisa, *. Amara smiled, her heart swelling with quiet satisfaction. The ripple effect was already in motion, proof that even the smallest moments of grace could inspire lasting change. She set her phone aside and closed her eyes, ready to rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to push the boundaries of possibility. And she would meet them head-on, as she always did, with courage, conviction, and an unshakable belief in the power of humanity to rise above. The ripple effect. The sun set over the Atlanta skyline, painting the city in hues of gold and crimson. Amara stood on the balcony of her penthouse apartment, gazing out at the view. The past week had been a whirlwind, the keynote, the panel discussions, and the countless conversations that followed. Each interaction reinforced the importance of her mission, breaking barriers and inspiring change. Yet tonight, as the city buzzed below her, Amara allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her thoughts drifted back to the flight, to Lisa, and to the email she'd received earlier that day. Lisa's words had been a reminder that even the smallest interactions could spark meaningful transformations. Amara had always believed in the power of individual impact, but seeing it unfold so tangibly filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. The sound of her phone vibrating on the table pulled her from her thoughts. She picked it up to see a message from Elijah. Just received an update, the first round of grants for the STEM initiative has been approved. The schools are ecstatic. Also, there's an interview request from a journalist who attended the summit. They'd like to feature you in a piece about leaders driving global change. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. Amara smiled, her fingers hovering over the screen before typing a quick response. Schedule the interview. Let's keep the momentum going. The following morning, Amara arrived at the headquarters of Johnson Tech Solutions. The sleek, modern building was a testament to her vision, a space designed to foster collaboration, innovation, and inclusivity. As she walked through the bustling lobby, employees greeted her with warm smiles and nods of respect. Amara's leadership was not just about running a company, it was about creating an environment where everyone felt valued. She stepped into the conference room, where her leadership team was already gathered. Elijah stood at the head of the table, a stack of reports in hand. Good morning, everyone, Amara began, her tone firm but encouraging. Before we dive into the agenda, I want to share something that's been on my mind. The room quieted, all eyes on her. This week, I was reminded of the power of small moments, she said. Moments that challenge us to confront our biases and grow. It's easy to focus on the big picture, but real change often starts with the individual. As leaders, we have a responsibility to not only set the vision, but to live it in our daily interactions. Her words resonated deeply, sparking a renewed sense of commitment among the team. They spent the next hour discussing strategies to further integrate inclusivity into their operations, from recruitment practices to community outreach programs. By the end of the meeting, the team left inspired and energized, ready to translate their ideas into action. That evening, Amara attended a gala for one of the education foundations she supported. The event was a celebration of milestones achieved through the partnership, including the launch of tech labs in underserved schools across the country. As she mingled with guests, she was approached by a young woman clutching a notebook and a pen. Ms. Johnson, my name is Tiana, the woman said, her voice trembling with excitement. I'm a college student studying computer science, and your work has been such an inspiration to me. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done. Amara smiled warmly, placing a reassuring hand on Tiana's shoulder. Thank you for sharing that with me, Tiana. What do you hope to do with your degree? Tiana's eyes lit up. I want to create software that helps bridge communication gaps for people with disabilities. My brother has a speech impairment, and I've seen how technology can make a difference in his life. Amara's heart swelled with pride. That's a wonderful goal. Keep pushing forward, and don't let anything deter you. If you ever need guidance, reach out to my office. We're always looking to support bright minds like yours. Tiana's gratitude was palpable as she nodded enthusiastically. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I will. As the gala wound down, Amara stood at the podium to deliver a closing address. Her voice carried across the room, filled with passion and conviction. Tonight, we celebrate progress, not just in technology, but in opportunity. Every milestone we've achieved is a testament to what happens when we invest in people, when we believe in their potential. But our work is far from over. There are still barriers to break, voices to amplify, and futures to shape. And together, I know we can do it. The applause that followed was a crescendo of hope and determination, a collective commitment to the mission she had dedicated her life to. Later that night, as Amara returned home, she reflected on the interconnectedness of her journey. From the young girl in South Carolina who dared to dream beyond her circumstances to the CEO and philanthropist she had become, every step was a testament to resilience and the power of belief. Her encounter with Lisa on the flight had been a reminder that change often started in the smallest, most unexpected moments. Before heading to bed, Amara opened her laptop and typed out a message to her team. This week has shown me the importance of intentionality, in our actions, our words, and our vision. Let's continue to lead with purpose and create a world where every person has the opportunity to thrive. Together, we can make it happen. Send, she whispered, closing the laptop with a satisfied smile. The journey ahead was long, but she was ready, fueled by the belief that humanity's greatest strength was its capacity for growth, connection, and unyielding hope.